Hey there, welcome to episode 169 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. We are recording this at 1:58 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in Greater Vegas on this Tuesday, May 12, 2026. We normally publish new episodes of this program on Tuesdays, sometimes in the morning, not always, it all depends. So here we are in the early afternoon of a very warm Tuesday here in the Greater Vegas area. Today's title and topic, adding CityCamp 2026. Well, what on earth could that mean? Well, I'm glad you're here, I'll tell you. But first, if you're not familiar with the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program, or more generally, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, let me tell you. This is our weekly audio program. We talk about projects, we talk about initiatives, we talk about participation, we talk about the business of operating a public charity. We talk about looking for directors to join our board of directors, and we talk about cultivating our culture of innovation in the Greater Vegas area and beyond. You can innovate for Vegas, as we do. Doesn't mean you have to innovate in Vegas. So we are usually, if people find us, open to collaboration across any distance. It's a lot of stuff. Our purpose statement, by the way, we are a public charity. We are a Nevada nonprofit corporation. The purpose statement on record: to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. That's the 3 I's. The implementation part is tricky sometimes, but that's what we're working towards, so we can elevate our communities through various efforts. Not everything is tech, not everything is code, all comers. As we come out of the civic volunteer winter, we're hopefully going to encounter people with a little bit of experience. The Innovate for Vegas Foundation is not a coding camp. It is not a school. It is not a place where you should expect to be taught things. As a matter of course, now, ideally, everyone involved will learn something. It's amazing what you can learn by helping others. So in that sense, it is a place of learning, but it's more a place of osmotic learning. You will come to learn from those you intend to teach. If you would like to share some knowledge with someone, share some experience and so on. And, it's all good stuff. It's all aiming at making Greater Vegas a Greater Vegas. So on that note, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which does contain the show notes, including a brief summary, which I'll read to you, and the links for today's episode. On top of the normal 2 homepages for our organization, there are 3 episode links. Those are for today's episode, relevant to it. Sorry, a little So let's get started. It's getting hotter by the minute outside, luckily. The summary of today's episode: we deferred the Smarter Smart City Challenge from this year to commence on January 2027, so we get a full year to enable and encourage everybody. In the meantime, since CityCamp was a source of some ideas and inspiration, why not add CityCamp to our 2026 agenda? Like magic. The links for today's episode, as usual, the Innovate for FOR Vegas homepages. Innovate for, again, Innovate FOR Vegas, and they're both spelled the same way. InnovateForVegas.org, .org, is where we keep our foundation initiative information, participants, civic volunteers doing their thing, documentation, progress, all of the things. It's sort of the what are you up to over there? And that's where you would find that stuff. So InnovateForVegas.org. It's the second official website. Innovate for Vegas Foundation was once upon a time Code for Vegas, and then Code for Vegas Foundation when we rebooted it. And so there was a codeforvegas.org, and I think there might still be, but I think it directs to innovateforvegas.org. And there was a GitHub organization, Code for Vegas, which we also have, but Innovate for Vegas on GitHub also. All those are linked from the homepage there. Innovate for Vegas Foundation, same spelling, InnovateForVegas.Foundation, is the business side, the boring stuff like We're a Nevada nonprofit corporation. We're a 501c3 public charity. We file our 990s every year. We have bylaws. We have a board of directors. We are looking for two directors to join our board of directors as I record this today on Tuesday, May 12, 2026. Our fourth fiscal year is coming to an end on June 30th. So if you're interested in participating, reach out now for our board of directors. So our next fiscal year will commence on July 1st, and we have some big plans, as we've been talking about with the Smarter Smart City Challenge. We have our ongoing initiatives. We have very little in the way of participation thanks to the Civic Volunteer Winter, but hopefully the spring is upon us in that regard. So innovateforvegas.org, innovateforvegas.foundation. One is the fun stuff, one is the business stuff. And then the 3 episode links for today, CityCamp, which we'll talk about in greater detail. CityCamp's website, citycamp.com. I'm not sure why they went with the .com, but it is an open source brand. It is really, it's basically a structure. You could kind of look at it as a template, but it's a structure and a sort of a promotional platform. So you would go to CityCamp, find out who or where, which localities, cities or regions are having. You don't have to be a city. You could be an unincorporated part of Clark County, for example. But CityCamp, you can start there. You find out what their playbook is, kind of how to. They have a code of conduct because you are representing this open source brand. That's fine. And then a calendar, who's having CityCamp events where. And so we'll talk about that some more. So that's kind of a starting point. CityCamp.com. You can find out the back story. If you're familiar with Code for America, one of the co-founders of the CityCamp idea was Jen Palka. She, I don't know if she's involved with CityCamp now. She's involved with all kinds of things, but some origin story there. CityCamp.com/about, which I have not linked to here, but you can get that story. Smart City Vegas. That's our website for the Smarter Smart City Challenge. Smart City Vegas, smart-city.vegas. is where we will coordinate. So now that we have more time, we haven't really updated the site. There are a few things to add, including now this CityCamp idea. Smart City Vegas, sort of like the CityCamp website, is kind of the starting point. Most of the fun stuff will be happening in various locations that probably don't have websites, in our case, around the greater Vegas area. So it's sort of a starting point and an information resource and so on. But the real effort, the real energy, the real work will be done by people all over. Unconference, it's a Wikipedia page. You can find out more about what an unconference is. CityCamp is an unconference, and the Smarter Smart City Challenge, I had called it, and I have called it, and I have referred to it and described it as an unconference. The base sort of thing to take from that label is that it is planned and organized by the people who are participating. So rather than being told when the day is, what the events are, what the goals are, and so on, you have a collaborative effort to schedule, plan, get the word out, and so on. So it's kind of a group effort. We are facilitating the Smarter Smart City Challenge, and we'll facilitate the CityCamp Las Vegas 2026 event. The CityCamp event will be kind of a hackathon weekend, whereas the Smarter Smart City Challenge is all year for 2027. Sounds like a big thing, but remember, most of the work is done by individuals and teams for Smarter Smart City Challenge. So don't think of it as like it's going to be happening every single day. It's 1 year long so that people can participate when they can and so on. So we'll talk about that some more. Those are the links. Let's get on with the rest of the episode. The challenge path, in case you forgot. The Smarter Smart City Challenge is something we have covered a bit, and we will cover more in coming weeks and months as January 2nd, 2027 approaches. I'm not even exactly sure that it's January 2nd per se, but it is not January 1st because that's a holiday. It's also a big deal in Vegas with fireworks and other celebrations. So kicking off on January 2nd would be interesting. If we can do something with whatever trade shows are in town in early January, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but any that would be around and might be interested in promoting a community elevating direction as a challenge we'll see what happens. Now, we were initially aiming for a fast start. Like we started talking about this in January 2026. And so I'm thinking 2027 and a year before. So 2026, though, we were going to do what I would call a fast start, right? Like let's get going, and we'll do the unconference, participants join in the planning. We'll do the planning as part of the start. So we'll aim for March 1st, 2026. We'll start inviting people at large to come and join in, and here's what we're doing, learn more about it, and so on. And I said at the time, this is sort of like a CityCamp, but some other stuff, and it's over a longer period of time. We're going to do it through 2026 and end, January 2nd, 2027, or somewhere in there. Getting an understanding on par with this challenge, getting it up and running on short notice in Greater Vegas is an impossibility. To outdo other impossibilities. In fact, it's a big one. That's just getting the word out, getting people to understand what it is. And of course, I have described before the 1-9-90 problem. So we need to reach more 1s and 9s. These are the people who are kind of leaders, enablers, followers, if you like, and then spectators. So a lot of people will follow a LinkedIn page, but then do nothing else. And that is essentially nothing. So getting the word out is impossible without some sort of a megaphone that is not LinkedIn, local press, similar problems. So why sell our challenge short by trying to rush it without getting proper channels and connections to, say, students or people in the Greater Vegas area who are not following us on LinkedIn, et cetera. So this is a challenge that is worth the effort of actually reaching people and making that happen. And so for the sake of the event and the quality of the event and the quality of the experience of those participating and so on, we shifted it into, and plus, we'll get the full year. So January 2027, and we'll figure out if it's the 2nd or the 5th or whatever it is. Whatever day makes the most sense. And we'll, again, in an unconference fashion, we'll have people that are participating, helping to facilitate and so on. We'll have everybody chime in on that. The actual kickoff day is not necessarily the most important day. It might be the day that someone learns about it and then decides to take part. So that could be any day in 2027, essentially. And that is the main reason for the 1-year timeline, is to enable people who don't have a weekend to spend on a hackathon. They don't want to stay awake so much if that's part of the agenda of a particular hackathon. Some are all-nighters. Some encourage people to go home and take a nap and come back in the morning, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever the case may be, by giving people 1 year to participate, they have options when they participate, how they participate. Maybe something that they want to accomplish will take a little bit longer than a weekend. Some really good ideas often do. They may become interested, and then they want to get some other people to join a team or work on something as a little group effort. But coordinating schedules, we can't make it on that weekend. Well, we can do it any time across the entire calendar year. Hopefully that will be more interesting to more people. And I did mention the any age component. Well, I implied that was students, as is the case with all Innovate for Vegas Foundation events. There is no 18 plus, 21 plus, et cetera, except for the fact that minor participants really need to have a parent, guardian, or maybe an educator or a mentor, somebody who is an adult around. Not everyone needs to bring an adult, but someone who, like a teacher, might have a classroom with some participants that want to take part, kind of run a project through the year and see what happens. So very flexible, but we do want to encourage minor participation with the addition of chaperone, a responsible adult party. Really, that serves two purposes. One is we want everybody to be safe and have a safe and yet inclusive environment. So not preventing people of younger ages from participating, but also doing so responsibly. And the second part of that, which kind of goes along nicely, we should have parents involved. We should have adults involved, parents of younger participants in particular. You should know what's going on in that regard. And hey, maybe you have some ideas too. And then you can tell your coworkers and your colleagues and your friends, and hey, this wonderful thing is going on. It's a great opportunity to learn and elevate our communities. And maybe somebody will finally listen about that pothole or that, and no, this is not about complaining. It's about proposing solutions to things. It's about coming up with implementations of ideas. It's about being creative, inventive, novel, etc. So yeah, and probably students have more time for this. But again, you have a whole year. A hackathon weekend is 48 hours. So if you split 48 hours over the course of 365 days, that can be done. And you can sleep whenever you want. In the earliest days of the ideation around the challenge, the Smarter Smart City Challenge, a glance at the CityCamp website was useful. And I have pointed out, as I have today, that there were some ideas from there, like some of the categories for areas to focus on, sort of topics. And I've described this before. As part of my own role with Intel Corporation a while back, I played a collaborative role, or at least a mentorship role, if I wasn't part of like a co-organizing team or something like that, in many all-nighter style hackathons. These would be, they start around maybe 8 p.m. on Friday and they end maybe 5 p.m. on Sunday. And you may sleep, but the event does not. So the intent is to enable people to just go straight through the weekend if they want. Not to mention the America's Greatest Makers reality show, which was produced over a dozen weeks or so, similar to a long-run hands-on challenge, except each team was doing it for real, like a real competition that was televised. These and more have provided some basis for consideration and discussion, and ideally others will have other viewpoints and they will join in as well. CityCamp and the Smarter Smart City Challenge are similar enough in focus, aiming effort of those in a locality at their own locality to elevate communities and so on, that they would actually go well together, I think. CityCamp has a target World CityCamp Day. The date is sort of a center point, of a point of focus, if you like. It's in late September. I think it's the third weekend. If they're going to continue with that selection, I don't know if they just rebooted it last year in 2025. So we'll see if they stick with the third weekend in September. So that will get some focus. We do want it to have enough of a buffer between it and the actual Smarter Smart City Challenge. So we don't want to wait till like December or something. So September makes sense. And by selecting whatever the World CityCamp Day is, then we can hopefully have more notice, become more noticeable, I suppose. So that's the goal at this time. That could change based on our on-conference meetups. But they actually would go well together, the challenge and CityCamp. And so it would make a lot of sense to consider participating in this world-scale event on the calendar with a CityCamp Las Vegas, which would be a great way to introduce the notion of civic-focused ideation and innovation here in Vegas, and to tell people that it is happening in Vegas and so on, which would then lead nicely into the year-long Smarter Smart City Challenge along similar axes, though the scope of the Smarter Smart City Challenge may be larger or net larger. I don't know that the intent of a CityCamp gathering is to enable all topics. So we'll see how that goes. But Smarter Smart City Challenge, the goal is to enable anyone to work on anything aimed at elevating their communities, making our city better, making for a greater Vegas, etc. So really anything goes, and you have a year to accomplish what you can. CityCamp is a little bit more focused. So we'll see if we can get more participation over that time, the 1 year. I don't anticipate having 1,000 people join in at CityCamp. You never know. You never know. Vegas is always a surprise. But I would like to see at least 1,500 people participating in the Smarter Smart City Challenge over the course of the year. That doesn't mean signed up on the 2nd of January, but it does mean, through the year, 1,500 people is a drop in the bucket of people. Does that even make sense? Clark County is 2.4 million people, so that's still approximately 0% of our local population. I say Clark County, Greater Vegas is larger than the city of Las Vegas, city of North Las Vegas, Henderson, unincorporated Clark County. But really, when you think about it, Greater Vegas could be as large as you like. So hopefully the more the merrier. So to hackathon or not to hackathon, I've already given some reasoning behind the 1 year idea. When we first reformed this foundation back we started talking about it in January of 2022. We incorporated as a Nevada nonprofit in June of 2022. We were organizing, there you go, a monthly hackathon meetup, which was not a traditional all-nighter hackathon per se. We had an entire weekend on the calendar, so we did have a 48-hour time allotment, I suppose, on the schedule, and a meeting space. So that space was hours for the 48 hours every month. The intent for free, which was nice when City of Las Vegas pretended to be into this stuff. The intent was to enable people to drop in and collaborate on their schedule, to stay the whole time if they wanted to, but not necessarily. They didn't need to commit 40 hours or so of a weekend every month. So it was maximal flexibility. We never had any takers that stayed beyond 5 p.m.-ish or so on Saturday. And then Sunday would have very little participation. So eventually we kind of put that one on hiatus. People stopped showing up. I was more than happy to sit in the Innovation Center in downtown Las Vegas by myself for an all-day Saturday meditation activity, I suppose. But so we started moving to virtual meetups, and those make sense in some cases. So probably a mixture of in-person. Anyway, so I'm getting off the topic here. But this was taken into account when pondering the Smarter Smart City Challenge, activities and events, and how we could structure this substantial undertaking. And from now on, I'll just refer to it as the challenge, but that's what I'm referring to. The challenge is the Smarter Smart City Challenge. To enable more people to participate on their own schedules and to join in when they can, possibly when they learn about it. Again, they could hear about it in March and still participate. That's totally fine. Maybe they'll hear about it from a friend, or if we begin to get some press coverage for examples. I don't anticipate the latter. The year-long timeline makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. Could there be a hackathon mixed in there? Absolutely. Maybe more than one through 2027. So once it's January and we start cooking, it may make sense to have a hackathon in March, or it may make sense to have a summer hackathon that would be more inclusive of students. We shall see. Maybe one in June and one in August, like beginning of the summer and end of the summer. So when students go back to school, hey, it's an idea. We can even have a CityCamp Las Vegas 2027 that could overlay the challenge timeline, but enable participants in one or both. So CityCamp Las Vegas 2026, then the Smarter Smart City Challenge all through the year. And then in September, there would be a CityCamp Las Vegas 2027 that we could still have. And so if you only wanted to participate in one or both, you could. And I will also point out during the year, there is the Future City Challenge that is aimed at junior high school students, I believe it is. The Congressional Apps Challenge from the U.S. Congress. There's the NASA Space Apps Challenge, I think is still happening every year. And there are probably many more. I understand that there's a mining-oriented hackathon challenge. The sky's the limit. Figuring out where these are taking place is really the challenge. That's a different challenge. But certainly through the year, we could sort of intersect with and maybe even collaborate with some of these organizations that are having their version of hackathons or challenges, see where there's some synergies and so on. None of these need to be tightly coupled to the Smarter Smart City Challenge, also known as the challenge, but they could. So we'll see. We'll see what comes of these interactions. The shorter format of a CityCamp event is this, as it's described on the website, aligns well with a hackathon. And sometimes people forget to make assumptions about fictitious requirements, but one need not stay awake or stay in a particular location to participate for the duration. So some people believe that, a hackathon is these things. That's not really true. I've actually done an entire episode on this. A hackathon is really a ticking clock. Maybe there's a prize or some sort of a motivator. There's some form of competition, usually so that you will get the motivator, the goal. Like we want the gift card, or we want the trophy, or whatever it is. So there's a ticking clock. That's usually the most important part, to be honest. A little bit of pressure, a little bit of competition, probably some sort of prize. And the prize could just be bragging rights, right? Our team won. That sometimes is enough. And then some sort of a theme or a goal. other than a prize or an incentive. So maybe it's a Smarter Smart City Challenge, but maybe it's aimed at water conservation, or maybe it's aimed at keeping streets safe for pedestrians, or, so you could pick particular things. So it would be streets and traffic, or it would be resource sustainability, right, in general. But yeah, people often make assumptions about hackathons. Oh, so you need pizza, Red Bull, laptops, and you're going to build apps. No, none of those things, unless those are the things, right? So a hackathon can take many forms. That's why I call them fictitious requirements. They're not universal. They're not fictitious for a particular event, but when people assume, they're not necessarily correct. If there's one thing, and it could be virtual, could be in person, could be virtual, could be a mix, could be straight through all-nighter, could be, take a break at midnight, come back tomorrow morning kind of thing. I've done all those. If there's one thing I learned over my own participation variations in a variety of hackathon events, not to mention startup weekends and similar, it would be that enjoying the time is more important than enforcing a timeline. Facilitating a CityCamp Las Vegas in 2026, though, will be a great way to prepare to provide a dry run of sorts for those considering participating in the challenge. Now, I don't want to diminish CityCamp by calling it a dry run for the challenge, but it is a nice way to find out if civic ideation and innovation are interesting, not to mention providing something for local press, educators, and everybody else to check out before January comes along. So while I don't want to insult CityCamp by referring to it as a dry run for our event, it does it does provide that initial experience, some familiarity, so that people can say, oh, okay, maybe if people participate, they will be now advocates for the Smarter Smart City Challenge. I had a great time at the CityCamp, and now we can do it all year, and so on. So I don't want in any way to diminish the CityCamp or other events, but I do believe it would be contributing to the potential of this, what is essentially a novel event all year. That's kind of unusual. It has been done also, but it's not too common. But I think if we have a successful CityCamp Las Vegas in 2026, it would help with people understanding, oh, okay, this is something I could be a part of, and so on. So yeah. So not trying to use CityCamp, trying to include it in this overall elevation of community and cultivation of innovation culture in Vegas. There you go. So hackathons will fit into this overall story arc in general. Exactly how will be a topic of conversation in our unconference planning sessions. There you go. Both unconference, something I have been reaching out about since we first ideated about all of this months ago, as far as the challenge, is the notion that this is not something that is being organized for others, but rather something that those who would like to participate in, if I could speak, are invited to help organize it. Right? The Innovate for Vegas Foundation is facilitating the challenge, as I've mentioned a few times in recent episodes. So we are a fiscal sponsor. We're acting as the fiscal sponsor for Smart City Vegas, which may make donor and sponsor support easier for some, maybe. The challenge, though, is not something that will be designed and organized in a small back room and then foisted into the greater Vegas area for people to decide to participate in or not. Rather, anyone who may have been interested or who may be interested in general coming up, anyone interested in joining in on our online planning meetups is welcome to join in the discussion, help out with the outreach, specific planning of particular events, all the other moving parts and ideas. It's a hackathon weekend is not trivial, and it's mostly the little details that people will miss. This actually mirrors the notion of the challenge somewhat, though, since all of this revolves around collaboration towards enabling and elevating, really. So in other words, the goal of the challenge is to make a community better, whether the community is your neighborhood, your next door neighbors on a street, your county, some system within the county, schools, unsafe intersection, whatever it is. So you're taking part in something that is supposed to end up affecting people in our locality in a positive way. So not ironically, you can also participate in making the series of events that will enable these things also come together. So you're participating in the thing that enables you to participate in the thing. Hopefully that makes sense. I guess if you want to be a little bit cynical, it's like helping to plan your own birthday party, maybe helping to plan your own surprise birthday party. Like, hey, it is about me. I want to be involved in it, right? So I'm, I almost skipped over an entire item. CityCamp is also designed as an unconference. I've been involved in some unconference things before, so the notion was not foreign, but it is a way to describe what I attempted to describe with a surprise birthday party. Find out what an unconference is. So CityCamp is also designed as an unconference, so we can open up our online meetup for planning and ideation around an upcoming CityCamp event on a smaller scale, but also learn along the way to arrive at some considerations for the year-long challenge. So the challenge is a superset of CityCamp planning. At least we'll find out. It might not be, as it turns out, but I think it is. I think there's a lot of overlap. Something we will need to account for is what we might call mid-course corrections through the year-long challenge, which will not come up for planning of the CityCamp weekend event, since the CityCamp is, by the time you know that we need to fix something, the event is essentially over, so you plan for next year. So an after action, of course, would figure in there. It may be possible to take what we plan for the CityCamp event, learn from that planning once the event takes place, and then apply any corrections to the first weeks of the challenge as we begin to tune it for the longer timeline. I am going to get into some of the things I learned from hackathon planning and participation during my time with Intel, but suffice to say here, the value of input from a few viewpoints is difficult to describe. It is a lot. And this does represent a challenge in and of itself here in Vegas, which tends to be a place where others wait to see what happens before they join in. I often describe this as show me what you got. I believe a city camp with some positive outcomes, maybe use of words like educational and fun and inspiring and so on, would be one such thing to show for the challenge which would follow. So I think if there's a lean in, an aha moment. And in fact, some people will not be up for an all-year challenge, but they would still find something in the CityCamp format, fun, useful, educational, fun, and inspiring perhaps. So yeah, I think again, some real synergies between these two styles of events, which ultimately have similar goals. Obviously the timelines vary substantially. So the hackathon in a box. That was a real thing that we made. I was involved with many hackathons during my time with Intel Corporation. Our goals were to promote the products from the Maker Innovator Group, of which I was a part. And the products were aimed at makers, not at big companies like Dell and Apple. Most of Intel was aimed at big giant customers, Apple and Dell among the top 5. So, and that was many years ago. So I don't know what they're doing nobody knows what they're doing right now. So experience level and base knowledge were over a fairly broad spectrum. Any student, it could be someone just learning how to turn their ideas into things. It could be some college students that have been working on electronics or software engineering or civil engineering, whatever it is. It could be any range of skills and abilities and backgrounds and so on. Normally, Intel would serve the engineering design teams at these big companies. So you have a little bit more of a known quantity. You have experience, you have familiarity with design standards and so on. Not always the case with a beginner, someone who's just learning how to be a so-called maker. So there's a little bit more need to be educational rather than merely serving, what do they call it? Field support engineering? FE, field support engineer, field engineer, what is it? FE? Field engineer? Something like that. Whatever that title is. Who needs titles? We need more books, not titles. Add in things like, I skipped over a sentence, sorry. A fairly broad spectrum as far as coding, wiring up sensors, breadboards, and Grove sensors, and all the other possibilities. So not everybody knew. We had a nice smattering of backgrounds and skills and so on. Add in things like snacks, possibly entire meals, seating, collaboration spaces, availability of things like dry erase boards and work surfaces, internet access, and some of the things that are obvious yet often under considered, like documentation, instructions, how to help. And this again was a problem with Intel. They didn't quite bridge that gap. What? All you have to do is do this thing that everybody knows how to do. Like, well, we are literally talking to people who don't know what you're talking about. And to be honest, the list goes on and on. The box was heavy. We had developed our hackathon in a box idea, which was a mixture of physical sensors, so literal things in boxes, and devices, supplies, and so on, and planning elements like the size of the space, the minimum size for a particular size of participants, a population of participants, and the resources that would be available on site versus what we might need to bring. Like, do they have Wi-Fi, for example? The contents of the box, literally and figuratively, are a baseline of sorts. The bill of materials of the hackathon in a box is something we iterated on over several events, where we learned the hard way that simple things not accounted for can really detract from the experience overall, and not in a trivial way. By way of example, or our has a U in it. It also has a me in it. Our main platform for the IoT hackathons, which were those were the Intel only events. So Intel would sponsor about 100 people. We'd find a co-work space in a city. They usually had Wi-Fi. We usually had the Intel Edison as the base product, sometimes a Galileo, but usually Edison, which was boxed with the earliest software image when they were manufactured, requiring an out-of-box flashing process to update it to full functionality, which meant getting online. The events were usually 100 people. So imagine, if you will, 100 people with 100 laptops and 100 cell phones. How many were going to St. Ives? Plus we mentors and facilitators and our various devices, laptops and phones and so on. Not to mention the Edison devices themselves powering up with their Wi-Fi radios along the way. And this menagerie of devices has used up all of the addresses a router can allocate, and actually coming up short. This made for a profoundly frustrating experience, with out-of-box activities taking up maybe 90 minutes, sometimes longer, of valuable hackathon time, setting the stage for disappointment. And that's enemy number one. You want people to enjoy the experience so that they will come back. You don't want to set up somebody for a failure by letting these details slide and then have them say, you know what, instead of being interested in this thing, some sort of technology related or whatever motivated them to come and join in on a hackathon, they may say, this was not fun. I'm going to change my career trajectory completely. That should be a decision they make based on something other than disappointment. The take-home lesson across the board: participation should be fun, educational, a little bit competitive if appropriate, but even still, a little bit, there should be the ticking clock, at least. That's an easy one. We only have 2 hours left. So if you're going to get something working, there you go. Should be inspirational and ideally resulting in a real sense of accomplishment. The "I would like to do this again" sentiment is, when it is all said and done, would be a nice to have, obviously. An enabling and encouraging environment, and the ability to participate for participants to spend their time and energies on their ideas and their innovation pursuits, not on trying to get the gadgets to work and on other such complications. That took us a few iterations to get through, but we did it eventually. Hey, what if we put the updating information on a thumb drive and make that available to people so they don't have to actually download the same image 100 times from the Intel servers, etc. With the unconference structure, there will be some people who have never done anything like this before, but who might bring their own questions and concerns. So not knowing is not really not knowing so much as not yet knowing what is actually about to be known, if that makes sense. And by everyone involved, right? Oh, we never thought about that question that you just asked because you've never been to a hackathon before. There you go, winning. So if that makes sense, that's the basic idea. Many different viewpoints, many opinions, many thoughts, many people interested in making this happen. So we can assemble our CityCamp in a box, if you like, and see what that box can, see what in that box can be reused for the challenge. I suspect there will be some things that will work for both. Others will be different due to the length of time, the likely variety of locations and venues, and so on. Now, and so on, in fact. The challenge, the Smarter Smart City Challenge, will not be a daily, like, all hands on deck. We got to have meetings every week. And we got, there's not going to be that level of intensity that as much as there would be going into planning. But at the same time, we don't necessarily have to have the entire year planned out. We can make those mid-course corrections that you can't make over a weekend for a weekend hackathon. So some of the things that we learned for the CityCamp could be applied in multiple occurrences through the course of the year. If we have a weekend hackathon, if we have some sort of an in-person gathering, if we have some demo days, some sort of halfway point, hey, let's see progress reports for everybody and show us what you got, which is an expression I don't like, but it could be made fun. It could be some mild competition somewhere along the way. If, like, say in the summer, at the beginning of the summer, if we have some sort of end of the summer, we show off what people have accomplished, or maybe in the middle, half year. Here's what the people of Greater Vegas are working on to make this a better place. Then that might encourage some other people to get involved, or they hadn't previously. And you could say, look, this is what people accomplished in the first half. There's still a whole second half to go. If you want to jump in, you can find out more. So there are some aspects of a CityCamp in a box or a hackathon in a box that could apply to different parts along the way of the all-year timeline of the challenge. But the challenge will mostly be about enabling teams and individuals to accomplish things. So mostly, to be honest, I'm just guessing at this moment, mostly it'll be a question of, where do I get information about how a city functions or how a county functions? What is in the realm of possibility? Like, say I want to come up with a better way to have parks. Well, parks and recreation of wherever you are, wherever the intended space or property would be, what is it you want to accomplish, and so on. So having access to information, maybe some questions, maybe some people from different city resource centers like Parks and Recreation, maybe they would be available for questions through the year, questions and answers, hopefully. Maybe we can have some people from those organizations participate. That would be even more fun. So what exactly will make for a successful challenge will come down to how we factor the year into, here's what we need during this type of event, hackathon. Here's what we need generally, answers to questions and access to information that might be relevant to somebody's idea. Do we need sponsors? Probably. Do we need to provide food? Sometimes. Do we need to think about communication between people done in a safe way? Yes. Do we need to provide resources for online collaboration? Maybe. That would be nice. So there's a variety of things that we can talk about in our various online meetups, which we will continue to have through this whole year, for the CityCamp in September, and then on through into January. And then after that, during the challenge, for mid-course corrections and so on. Surely all of this can be done by one person. So what next? What next? This is the last section, by the way. CityCamp has itself been rebooted, as I mentioned. I think it was in 2018, I believe, and then 2025 they brought it back. It was reasonably successful from what I understand. And while by all appearances these are independent events at different localities, not unlike the NASA Space Apps Challenge that we facilitated a couple of years ago here in Vegas, those took place all around the world. So there was no top level management. A lot was left to the localities, right? Here are the rules. You're using our branded assets to advertise. We're putting you on the map. There's a code of conduct. There's participation requirements as far as parental permissions and so on. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for the details. So this can be viewed in a similar fashion. It's a skeletal structure that they have, the playbook. They have some branding, open source, under Creative Commons, I believe. I'm not looking at the page at the moment. They have discovery resources like a top-level event directory with maps and times and whatnot. So we are essentially on the hook to unconference this event for what may be September, third weekend in September. We can try to have our event at the same time as their world event in that September weekend, which is described as a potential strategy. They mention it on the website. That's totally reasonable to do, so that we are on the world radar, so to speak, especially since this is our first time hosting a CityCamp. So this gives us the summer, June, July, and August, and some of September hopefully by September we're wrapping up the minorest of minor details. Some of September to dial everything in. This will likely make for a more frequent meetup than once a month. as is the case right now. So right now, our online meetups, planning meetups for Smart City Vegas are on the first Wednesday of each month. I can see where that would need to maybe double, maybe. We'll see. We'll see if we can get people interested in showing up at all. That would be a change. The show me what you got hill, in the right setting, that's not a bad or awful thing to tell someone, but I've encountered that in places where you would ask, say, do you want to be a part of this? And if it's show me what you got before I even think about helping you, that's a different context. So the show me what you got hill here in Vegas, maybe a steep one to climb, and I assure you it is. If my experiences to date are an indication, and I believe they are, we will need to account for a steep and unfriendly climb. Finding people who would like to be involved in the planning process will need to be a little bit excited about these possibilities, maybe a civic mindset in general, a willingness to try something unfamiliar, and a tendency to want to engage others to invite them to join in as well. In other words, when you retweet something, you take a proactive interest. I'm not a fan of Twitter, but you take a proactive interest in helping to get the word out by doing something so minimal, right? So that's even hard to come by occasionally. Our LinkedIn interactions are evidence of that. So obviously it will be more fun and a little bit easier if we have people involved who would say, "Ooh, I'm going to ask a friend of mine, a colleague at work, a fellow teacher, someone I know from the gym, et cetera, right? People that you may find interesting and would like to invite to participate. That's part of participation, is getting the word out and inviting others to join in. It's an unconference after all. Our hackathon box will need a few people pulling items into it, which will likely work out better if there's some committees looking at donors and sponsors, maybe food and drink and other supplies, the venue for the weekend. CityCamp is only the one weekend. Some initial project ideas. Some topics are found on the CityCamp site, but examples I find are useful and helpful. This was the case with the NASA Space Apps Challenge. They actually spell out some challenges and, target outcomes and so on. But the one that is probably the most interesting is anything you want to work on. So you can set up a couple of examples like, hey, how about keeping track of unsafe intersections? Using various ideas that you might come up with, right? Is it an app that you need to develop, or is it really the mapping resources? Is it a notification scheme? Is it tracking the data over time? There could be a lot of different parts, and the things that I haven't thought of here, maybe you've been thinking, you know what, somebody really should do this. That could be you. So how do you connect all that together? Well, that's what we want to talk about during our meetups. And then you really want to turn you want to get the resources we need to make this happen. The CityCamp box should be pretty, I'll say, comprehensive. We should be able to get ready to make that event happen. It should happen. Then we'll have a post-mortem is the usual term, an after action. We'll look at what we could do better for next time, and we will learn from that as we enter the final path to commencing the challenge in January. And we, I don't want to oversell this, but these should be fun events. They should not be slogs. They should not be frustrating, right? So a lot of the work goes into covering some bases where when somebody wants to participate and they say things like, this is a true story. I was at a hackathon. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, call anybody out, even though this was like a decade ago, but not making fun, learning experience. So I was at a hackathon. It was in April. Usually hackathon food menus are starchy, some carbs. So bagels, donuts, pizza, a lot of carbohydrate. So this event in April, I noticed that and this hackathon had about 100 people participating. So I noticed like at least a dozen off to the side, kind of conversing amongst themselves. I said, "Hey, what's up? Are you guys can you grab something to eat?" I mean, guys in the generic sense. So it was a good mixture of people. You gonna go grab something to eat? And a couple of them said, "Well, we can't. It's Passover." So when you plan these events, you really have to find out how people are going to sustain themselves Do we have bathrooms? Are they accessible? Do we have ramps? Are we going to prevent people from participating for the simple fact that they can't get into the building? Do we have the food and the special dietary requirements? Nothing's worse than we have a whole spread of food here that you cannot eat for whatever reason. So it's the little things that make an event a good event. And so those are the sorts of things we can talk about between now and CityCamp Las Vegas 2026. Then resources we need to make available include a place to direct the outcomes so that the ideas can turn into action, perhaps a sense of accomplishment, not to mention recognition and celebration. So you don't want to have a hackathon, a CityCamp Las Vegas 2026 weekend, and then at the end say, well, no one's going to ever see any of this. That would be a revolt. So we want to have connectivity with our various organizations, municipal and otherwise, so that at the end there is a recognition that, oh, somebody had an idea here that might actually be worth pursuing. The panel of judges may be directly involved in some of the interest areas of the topics. Are we going to enable all of the topics on the list and more, perhaps, that you find at the CityCamp website? Are we going to focus on 2 or 3? How do we want to make this happen for maximal upside at the end? I know I sound very, very mechanical saying that, but at the end of the day, we want the real goal is to have people say, I want to do that again. And then you do it again. There are a few things on our foundation initiatives agenda, like challengers and MindUni as examples, which will work well with the overall CityCamp and Smarter Smart City Challenge efforts. If only we had people working on them. Maybe we can just get talks up and running if people would like to describe the experiences and whatnot when they learned and what they learned and so on. Talks.Vegas is our answer to TED Talks and to Ignite and so on. It would be an unencumbered community elevating effort to have people tell their stories, to enlighten, entertain, and educate. And there are a few things yet to be pondered, which is why it will indeed take a village to make these happen. And I will wager my $1 that the return on investment will be worthwhile for those who choose to not only help facilitate, because by the unconference nature of it, you are also potential participants, but anybody who participates in the CityCamp event and then the Smarter Smart City Challenge, ideally will come away thinking that was fun. I would like to do it again. And look, something I worked on actually helped to make a difference in some way. And that's all we all want to do, right? So I think I've talked enough for today. Hopefully this is interesting to you. We do have our Smart City Challenge calendar for Smart City Vegas is linked from the website. I have linked the website in our links here. I do publish information on LinkedIn, but that is essentially facing deprecation at this point. We get zero interaction. We get very little engagement, but it turns out we also get very little interaction. We get very little engagement based on the analytics that LinkedIn provides. We have 180 some followers of the page right now, and we get single digit viewership of some of our posts, sometimes double digits. That's not useful. We've done our press outreach. We reached out to educators. These are tagged posts, tagged by name of principals and school administrators and actual teachers. We've reached out to local press, again by name, of reporters and editors and so on. Very little in the way of response or interaction in any way on LinkedIn. So that makes LinkedIn our least favorite tool for doing this. So there are better ways to accomplish some of these things. By the way, the Challengers program, coincidence that it's been called that this whole time? No. Challengers was based on looking around at some of the events that happen through the year, the U.S. Congressional Apps Challenge, the NASA Space Apps Challenge. Well, how do you get people to not only discover these events, but understand the people who have participated? They are often students, either by requirement or by tendency. U.S. Space Apps Challenge is open to everybody. Congressional Apps Challenge is for high school students, I believe. But how do you know any of this? Our local media doesn't cover any of this. Our schools don't do a great job of getting the word out for the general population to understand that, hey, look, our students are doing these things. You might get something from a high school sports reporting for sports, and you might every once in a while get recognition in local media about a student or a student team that won a first robotics competition or similar. But there's a lot more going on than we ever hear about in local mainstream media. Our local content creators and promoters and influencers, they're really looking at the Strip and tourism facing information and content creation. So Challengers is about recognizing, celebrating, and of course promoting not only the individuals and teams that participate in these things, but the events themselves. That's where the promotion comes in. Like, hey, oh, look, here's the Smarter Smart City Challenge. I didn't know about this, but I would like to participate because I participated in the CityCamp. Hopefully that would not be the case. Hopefully you'll hear about both of these quite a bit. But the Challengers platform is aimed specifically at people who participate in challenges and hackathons and so on, but who are never known. So we recognize and celebrate that participation and accomplishment, and we promote upcoming events so they can discover those. And hopefully our local media will start to recognize that, hey, we only have to go to this website. Look at all this information that is made available to us. We can just report on this. We don't have to do any work. Okay, I'll put my cynicism hat back on the shelf. Yes, all of this and more. It's about enabling and encouraging ideation, innovation, and implementation across many axes. And if only there was more than one person working on this, that second person could be you. Take care now. Visit those websites. Continue to listen to this audio program if you would. Consider attending one of our we will talk about this a little bit during our office hours. We'll definitely talk about this during the online planning meetup that is presently on first Wednesdays. And you can find that from the Smart City Vegas website. A link to the calendar. We're using the Luma calendar right now. Not totally thrilled with it, but it works well enough. So consider joining in on those meetings. They're online. They will spawn additional meetings as needed. If we start to have more people that are interested, and if we need to move the times around, if we can break up into committees to tackle different parts of the box that we need to fill up, and so on and so on. Anyway, I've gone on for about an hour now, so I think that's been enough for both of us. Thank you, other listener, for listening. Tell a friend, share this information, share the basic notion. The LinkedIn page, Innovate for Vegas Foundation on LinkedIn, that is linked from our website. And the Smart City Vegas page is also linked from the Smart City Vegas website. The take-home lesson, getting the word out, is one of the biggest challenges we have to face, and your help will go a long way in doing that. That's all I have to say. Take care. Until next time.